Decades ago, after enduring a heartbreaking and unfulfilled marriage, and receiving profound sympathy from around the world, Diana uttered the immortal words that exposed the emotional wounds inflicted by royal isolation. There are 3 in this marriage, so it's a bit cramped. Despite this profound institutional tragedy, history has forever recorded Diana's ultimate victory. It was Queen Elizabeth II who steadfastly preserved Diana's beloved title of Princess of Wales, and it was King Charles who later allowed the permanent placement of her sacred bronze memorial statue within the historic grounds of Kensington Palace. However, today, with Prince William ruling the kingdom as de facto regent, Camilla's desperate attempt to destroy Diana's memory and erase her historical status has provoked a fierce retaliation from the future king, ensuring that the usurper's campaign of jealousy instead ignited the brutal collapse of her own family's power. Prince William firmly refused to approve a large state grant and permanent diplomatic immunity for Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, and her sister, Annabel Elliot. In an act of extraordinary retaliation that has shattered decades of palace protocol, Queen Camilla has now broken her strategic silence to unleash a venomous public accusation targeting Prince William's growing authority across the monarchy. Rather than engaging in a conventional administrative dispute, the Queen Consort has reportedly resurrected the darkest chapters of royal history, launching a ruthless attack tied to the memory of Diana, Princess of Wales, by confronting the symbolism surrounding her memorial statue at Kensington Palace. This unprecedented escalation marks the moment the conflict ceased to be a private family rivalry and transformed into a full-scale existential war for survival inside the monarchy itself, a bitter struggle between an aggressively defensive queen consort and a future king who now controls the operational destiny of the empire. The timeline leading to this systemic explosion reveals a deeper institutional breakdown driven by the declining physical condition of King Charles III. Throughout the critical operational windows of April and May 2026, the king's aggressive oncology regime has significantly restricted his public presence, forcing the monarch into prolonged clinical isolation. This medical reality triggered the implementation of emergency governance protocols, effectively establishing Prince William as the de facto regent of the United Kingdom. Operating with supreme administrative and executive authority from the nerve center of the state, the Prince of Wales has executed a sweeping fiscal and structural audit designed to eliminate nepotism and secure the core brand of the monarchy. The primary casualty of William's calculated modernization was the ambitious expansion plan proposed by Queen Camilla. For months, Camilla had demanded the formal expansion of the sovereign grant to include multi-million-pound security provisions and official advisory titles for Tom Parker Bowles and Annabel Elliot, seeking to bind her maternal bloodline permanently to the financial architecture of the state. When Prince William exercised his definitive executive veto to totally reject these demands, the power dynamic within the palace inverted. Camilla found herself completely isolated within an administration increasingly dominated by the absolute authority of the heir apparent. On the 25th of May 2026, as the Prince of Wales consolidated his grip on the Privy Council and finalized strategic briefs for the upcoming state summits, the Queen Consort authorized a highly destructive rhetorical counteroffensive from Clarence House. Rather than disputing the technical details of the budget, veto Camilla struck at the emotional and historical foundation of William's personal sovereignty. She launched a targeted, direct critique against the permanent presence of the bronze statue of Diana, Princess of Wales, which was originally unveiled in 2021 within the highly protected confines of the sunken garden at Kensington Palace. The strategic choice to target the sunken garden memorial is a direct reaction to Camilla's growing marginalization within the modern corporate hierarchy of the Windsor dynasty. Throughout May 2026, as global diplomats and senior government ministers increasingly bypassed the Queen Consort to interface directly with William's executive team, Camilla recognized that her structural leverage was evaporating. The presence of Diana's statue, which has drawn hundreds of thousands of global visitors and stands as an immortal monument to the late princess's global adoration, became the ultimate target of Camilla's frustration. In an unauthorized briefing that has sent shockwaves through Westminster, Camilla formally accused Prince William of actively exploiting his de facto regency to aggressively promote a biased historical narrative. She claimed that the Prince of Wales is using his temporary executive authority to elevate an individual whom she explicitly characterized as historically unworthy of such permanent sovereign. Camilla's grievances reveal a deep-seated institutional envy that has simmered since her entry into the royal family. She argued that while she has spent over 2 decades executing demanding public duties, enduring immense media scrutiny, and providing unyielding support to King Charles III during the restructuring of the state, she has never been granted a comparable piece of permanent symbolic architecture. The Queen Consort's public outburst alleges that Prince William is manipulating state assets to enforce a cult of personality around his late mother, while systematically suppressing the contemporary contributions of the actual Queen. By choosing this volatile line of attack, Camilla has intentionally transformed a private administrative dispute over family stipends into a highly visible ideological war calculated to destabilize William's moral authority at the exact moment he stands at the pinnacle of his executive power. The strategic rebellion launched from Clarence House has rapidly escalated into a full-scale revisionist assault as Queen Camilla attempts to systematically deconstruct the moral and historical legitimacy of Diana, Princess of Wales. Recognizing that Prince William's supreme authority as de facto regent is deeply intertwined with the enduring public reverence for his mother, Camilla has targeted the foundational myths of Diana's legacy. In a series of highly calculated background briefings circulated to sympathetic media allies throughout late May 2026, the Queen Consort has weaponized the most controversial chapters of royal history. By intentionally reviving the explosive details of the 1995 Panorama television interview, Camilla has sought to reframe the historic collapse of the royal marriage not as a narrative of a vulnerable woman abandoned by the establishment, but as a deliberate, calculated act of institutional sabotage perpetrated by Diana herself. In these unauthorized communications, Camilla has aggressively criticized the late Princess of Wales for what she terms a flagrant and unforgivable violation of the Crown's sovereign honor. The Queen Consort's rhetoric focuses heavily on the moment Diana bypassed the traditional gatekeepers of Buckingham Palace to speak directly to the global public, revealing the intimate details of Prince Charles's infidelity and the emotional paralysis within the royal household. Camilla argues that by choosing to broadcast these private constitutional crises to millions of viewers, Diana intentionally compromised the structural security of the British state to secure her own public popularity. According to Camilla's contemporary defense, this historic act of defiance was not an innocent reaction to systemic isolation, but a malicious breach of the coronation environment that permanently damaged the public's trust in the continuity of the monarchy. To further diminish the symbolic weight of the Sunken Garden Memorial, Camilla has launched a series of direct personal allegations regarding Diana's private conduct during the turbulent years of the separation. The Queen Consort has resurrected old historical dossiers concerning Diana's documented relationships with her personal protection officer, Barry Monarchy, and the former British Army officer, James Hewitt. In a desperate attempt to neutralize her own historical reputation as an institutional interloper, Camilla has sought to paint Diana as an equally unfaithful partner whose private life was defined by chaotic and unauthorized external liaison. The strategic objective of this rhetorical offensive is entirely transparent to erode the moral superiority that Prince William's maternal bloodline has maintained for decades, thereby casting doubt on the legitimacy of the grand monuments erected in Diana's honor. However, this aggressive strategy has immediately backfired, triggering a massive and coordinated defensive response from the British public, the global media, and the influential Spencer family. Instead of isolating Prince William, Camilla's allegations have unified the late princess's ancestral house and her vast global following against the current queen. Senior representatives of Earl Spencer have issued immediate public clarifications, completely dismantling Camilla's weaponized narrative. They have reinforced the historical reality that individuals like Barry Monarchy and James Hewitt were well known to Diana's family and the public as trusted sources of emotional support during an era of profound institutional persecution. The contemporary consensus completely rejects Camilla's characterization, confirming that these men were compassionate allies who offered a vital lifeline to a young woman enduring a terrifying campaign of isolation within the cold structures of the Windsor dynasty. The media analysis following this rhetorical explosion has been devastating for Camilla. Royal biographers and constitutional experts have universally pointed out that by attacking a deceased national icon, Camilla has exposed the profound insecurity that still plagues her position within the contemporary hierarchy. The public reaction across the United Kingdom has been marked by intense revulsion, with millions of citizens viewing Camilla's sudden hostility as a vulgar display of institutional jealousy. Rather than convincing the nation that Diana is unworthy of her bronze monument, the Queen Consort's desperate campaign has only served to remind the global public of the immense suffering Diana endured. This tactical miscalculation has completely unified the public behind Prince William, cementing his role as both the rightful administrator of the contemporary realm and the ultimate guardian of his mother's immortal memory. The calculated historical assault launched by Queen Camilla has met an iron wall of absolute resistance from the Prince of Wales, who has reacted with a cold, devastating fury that has permanently altered the internal power dynamics of the British state. Prince William has completely rejected the traditional palace doctrine of passive non-resistance, choosing instead to leverage his immense executive power as de facto regent to mount an uncompromising defense of his late mother's honor. In a tense confrontation within the administrative chambers of the Royal Council, William explicitly condemned the Queen Consort, characterizing her revisionist campaign as an unprincipled and malicious act of defamation. The Prince of Wales has made it unequivocally clear to the senior political establishment that he possesses an absolute and unshakable trust in the memory of his mother, a conviction that no contemporary propaganda campaign from Clarence House can ever diminish. William's counteroffensive has completely unmasked Camilla's historical role within the Windsor dynasty, delivering a brutal verbal indictment that has shattered the carefully managed public relations facade built over the last 2 decades. Behind closed doors, the Prince of Wales fiercely criticized Camilla for her complete lack of moral boundaries, reminding the assembled councillors of the catastrophic emotional trauma she inflicted upon the family. William directly attributed the destruction of his childhood home and the systemic psychological torture of his mother to Camilla's decades-long clandestine interference. He articulated a profound and enduring anger over how the magnificent and vibrant Diana Spencer, whose unmatched elegance and empathy should have guaranteed her a peaceful and celebrated life, was instead systematically hunted, isolated, and driven to despair by a cruel network of institutional betrayal engineered by Camilla herself. To systematically dismantle the toxic narrative circulated by the Queen, Consort William has deliberately re-emphasized the authentic historical record of Diana's life, showcasing her profound resilience during the agonizing years of the royal separation. The Prince of Wales has painted a deeply moving portrait of a mother who, despite being stripped of her formal state protections, dedicated every ounce of her remaining strength to safeguarding the emotional well-being of her young son. He recalled how Diana intentionally chose a grounded, down-to-earth parenting style, taking William and Harry to public theme parks like Thorpe Park, where they could experience a genuine, unpretentious world far removed from the suffocating artificiality of Buckingham Palace. This deliberate focus on Diana's maternal devotion has instantly neutralized Camilla's corporate propaganda, reminding the nation of the deep human warmth that defined the late princess's private life. Furthermore, William has underscored his mother's enduring status as a transcendent international icon, whose global influence remained completely unaffected by her formal exclusion from the royal family. He reminded the political establishment that even after the institution stripped her of the Her Royal Highness title, Diana continued to function as the world's most powerful ambassador for human compassion. Her high-stakes independent diplomatic and charitable missions to places like Nepal and Egypt, alongside her groundbreaking hands-on advocacy for terminal HIV/AIDS patients, and the victims of landmines fundamentally revolutionized the concept of modern royal duty. Through these unyielding actions, Diana successfully transformed herself from a vulnerable aristocratic bride into the immortal princess of the people, a status that was earned through genuine sacrifice and global adoration rather than palace appointments. The definitive blow in William's rhetorical defense came when he invoked the supreme constitutional authority of the late Queen Elizabeth II to permanently settle the debate over Diana's historical status. The Prince of Wales revealed that during the intense constitutional negotiations surrounding the 1996 divorce settlement, it was the late Queen herself who insisted that Diana must retain the official title of Princess of Wales, a supreme honor that signaled the monarch's enduring respect for the mother of the future king. William delivered a devastating public decree stating that Camilla, despite her current crown and temporary administrative status, will never possess the authentic moral right or the public affection required to carry that historic title. By anchoring his argument in the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, William has effectively rendered Camilla's criticisms a form of constitutional treason, establishing a permanent barrier around his mother's memory that no contemporary detractor can cross. The battle lines within the House of Windsor hardened into an unyielding permanent structure, as Prince William moved beyond verbal defense to execute an unprecedented systematic dismantling of Queen Camilla's institutional standing. Operating with the full constitutional force of his de facto regency, the Prince of Wales issued a series of sweeping executive directives designed to explicitly codify Camilla's historic illegitimacy within the royal hierarchy. William completely abandoned the polite diplomatic compromises that had characterized his father's reign, choosing instead to expose the raw, unvarnished truths that have defined Camilla's presence for decades. In a highly confidential state memorandum circulated to the Prime Minister and the Privy Council, the regent laid bare the original ancestral and legal reasons why Camilla had been structurally blocked by the late Queen Elizabeth II from ever achieving authentic integration into the core sovereignty of the British Empire. The first pillar of William's indictment focused directly on the chaotic and highly disruptive nature of Camilla's personal history before her official entry into the royal family. The Prince of Wales articulated that the late Queen Elizabeth II, alongside senior constitutional advisors, had long maintained an ironclad policy of exclusion due to the volatile social and marital entanglements that defined Camilla's early life. William reminded the contemporary political establishment that Camilla's long-standing disregard for traditional decorum and her central role in the public degradation of the royal marriage had historically marked her as a severe institutional liability. By explicitly reviving these documented historical realities, the regent effectively shattered Camilla's current narrative of thumb-long devotion, proving that her presence was historically viewed by the highest authority of the land as an existential threat to the dignity and moral authority of the crown. The second pillar of the regent's executive decree exposed the strict legal and titles restrictions that further confirm Camilla's secondary status within the royal family. William highlighted the profound historical fact that upon her controversial marriage to Prince Charles in 2005, Camilla was explicitly barred from utilizing the title of Princess of Wales despite becoming the official wife of the heir apparent. This restriction was a direct concession to the intense public revulsion and a permanent constitutional reminder that the title belonged uniquely and irreversibly to Diana. Furthermore, William emphasized that under the traditional protocols enforced by Queen Elizabeth II, senior members of the royal family, most notably Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, were never required to perform formal acts of obeisance or bow to Camilla. The regent declared that his own sovereign standing under the historic title of Her Royal Highness commands a distinctly superior and permanent constitutional legitimacy that places him entirely beyond the reach of Camilla's contemporary administrative interference. To solidify this hierarchy, William revealed that despite the deep emotional manipulation that defined the tragic breakdown of his parents' marriage, King Charles III himself had ultimately recognized Diana's supreme status as the true enduring icon of the Windsor dynasty. The Prince of Wales exposed long-hidden details from the final years of his mother's life, proving that once the intense legal and financial disputes of the divorce were finalized in 1996, Charles and Diana developed a remarkably stable and cooperative partnership. They frequently met for private consultations and afternoon tea at Kensington Palace, working in absolute harmony to coordinate global charitable initiatives and manage the complex demands of co-parenting their two teenage sons. William emphasized that Charles actively supported and facilitated Diana's global evolution into an immortal cultural icon, recognizing that her unmatched public appeal was a vital asset to the future of the monarchy, a status that Camilla could never hope to replicate. The strategic execution of this decree culminated in a series of aggressive physical actions designed to permanently erase Camilla's historical influence from the primary properties of the crown. Prince William officially ordered the immediate deployment of a specialized royal maintenance task force to Highgrove House, the legendary Gloucestershire estate that had long served as the private sanctuary for Charles and Camilla's wartime romance. Under the guise of a comprehensive security and structural modernization program, William's teams executed a thorough dorn derp of the residence, systematically removing all personal artifacts, historical photographs, and interior designs that celebrated Camilla's presence. This decisive territorial reconquest sent an unmistakable signal through the corridors of power. Highgrove was being aggressively purged of its controversial past, effectively cutting off Camilla's emotional and territorial roots within the historic landscape of the monarchy. The systematic dismantling of Queen Camilla's institutional standing reached a critical point of no return, as Prince William weaponized the sovereign audit systems of the state to launch a relentless offensive against her maternal bloodline and financial empire. Moving far beyond property reconquests and structural purges, the Prince of Wales targeted the vast collection of historical assets that Camilla had quietly accumulated within her private vault since the death of Queen Elizabeth. Operating in absolute coordination with the senior trustees of the Royal Collection and the Duchy of Cornwall, financial auditors, William initiated a highly aggressive recovery operation. The objective of this campaign was to reclaim a multi-million-pound collection of priceless royal jewelry, heirlooms, and ceremonial artifacts that Camilla had systematically acquired and publicly displayed without the formal consent of the Sovereign Council. This high-stakes financial and historical asset reclamation focused heavily on the legendary personal jewelry collection of Diana, Princess of Wales. During her historic tenure as the premier woman of the realm, Diana had been gifted a magnificent array of bespoke tiaras, diamond necklaces, and ancestral brooches directly from the private collection of Queen Elizabeth II. Following her tragic departure from the royal family in 1996, Diana had intentionally left these priceless symbols of state sovereignty behind, refusing to leverage the historic assets for personal financial security. In the immediate aftermath of that transition, Queen Elizabeth II had placed an absolute and ironclad embargo on the collection, explicitly forbidding Camilla from ever touching or utilizing these specific items to prevent the public degradation of Diana's physical memory. However, following the passing of the late monarch, Camilla capitalized on Charles's ascent to the throne to bypass these historic restrictions, systematically extracting these sacred heirlooms from the vaults to ostentatiously display them at high-profile international state banquets. Prince William's administrative response to this perceived looting of his mother's legacy was swift and devastating. Backed by an explicit executive mandate from the Privy Council, the regent ordered the immediate confiscation and return of every disputed asset to the central archives of Kensington Palace. This decisive action completely stripped Camilla of her visual prestige on the world stage, delivering an undeniable public humiliation that signaled her rapid loss of structural authority. Yet this material recovery was merely the prelude to a far more destructive institutional crisis that erupted on the 26th of May 2026. On this historic date, a comprehensive investigation conducted by the independent Royal Financial Intelligence Branch completely exposed a massive network of systemic financial misconduct, unauthorized state contracting, and nepotism, directly involving Camilla's closest family members. The core of the May 26 collapse centered on the lucrative commercial activities of Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, and the state-funded consulting contracts held by her sister, Annabel Elliott. For years, Camilla had used her immense proximity to the throne to quietly steer high-value royal estate catering contracts, publishing deals and interior design refurbishments toward her direct relatives, ensuring that the Parker Bowles faction extracted millions of pounds from the sovereign administrative budget. The audit ordered by William completely shattered this network, exposing millions of pounds in unauthorized expenditures, hidden conflicts of interest, and severe breaches of the public trust. Within hours of the dossier's completion, the Prince of Wales used his executive authority to terminate every single contract associated with the Elliot and Parker Bowles families, stripping them of their access to the royal financial grid and initiating formal legal reviews into their past financial conduct. This comprehensive exposure left Queen Camilla completely cornered and politically defenseless within her own residence at Clarence House. The ultimate blow to her survival strategy came when King Charles III, faced with the undeniable financial evidence and the absolute executive unity of the military and political establishment, made an immediate and clear decision to side entirely with his heir. Recognizing that any attempt to protect Camilla's corrupt family network would result in the permanent destruction of his own legacy, the king signed a series of confidential decrees validating William's financial purges. Charles's rapid and absolute alignment with his son completely isolated Camilla, proving to the world that when the survival of the crown is at stake, the king will unconditionally sacrifice his wife's ambition to protect the continuity of the Windsor dynasty. This total abandonment by her husband left Camilla completely trapped, forcing her to witness the total destruction of her family's institutional leverage under the crushing weight of William's iron-fisted regency. The catastrophic failure of Queen Camilla's desperate historical counteroffensive has permanently sealed the fate of the Parker Bowles faction, drawing a definitive line under the turbulent transitional era and accelerating the total institutional ascendancy of Prince William. As the United Kingdom marches toward the highly anticipated state celebrations of Trooping the Colour scheduled for June 2026, the sweeping architectural and political transformations executed throughout April and May have hardened into an unyielding constitutional reality. The structural rebellion that once threatened to paralyze the daily operations of the British state has been thoroughly crushed by the calculating, corporate-style pragmatism of the de facto regent. Camilla's fatal miscalculation in launching a personal assault against the immortal memory of Diana, Princess of Wales, has not only failed to secure the financial futures of her children, but has instead triggered a comprehensive institutional purge that has completely erased her remaining influence from the corridors of sovereign power. The immediate consequences of this political collapse will be starkly visible to the global public during the upcoming military pageantry of Trooping the Colour in June. High-level briefings leaked from the Lord Chamberlain's office confirm that Prince William has utilized his supreme administrative authority to radically restructure the traditional choreography of the royal family's public appearances. Internal palace layout designs for the iconic Buckingham Palace balcony indicate an absolute minimization of Queen Camilla's ceremonial presence. Rather than occupying a central, coordinating position alongside an increasingly isolated King Charles III, the Queen Consort is forecasted to be relegated to a heavily restricted, purely symbolic background role. The undeniable focal point of the entire state apparatus will be positioned squarely around the formidable, united front of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, presenting the global community with a clear, uninterrupted vision of the monarchy's future leadership. This visual marginalization on the world stage is being reinforced by an impending wave of radical legislative and constitutional decrees, drafted by William's legal team, set to be formally enacted by the Privy Council in early June. These groundbreaking legal instruments are specifically designed to strip the office of the Queen Consort of any residual executive, financial, or administrative authority, ensuring that Camilla can never again leverage her proximity to the throne to disrupt the governance of the realm. The new decrees will establish an impenetrable statutory barrier around the sovereign grant, introducing stringent, independent oversight mechanisms that permanently disqualify non-bloodline relatives from accessing state-funded security apparatuses, real estate privileges, or lucrative procurement contracts. By codifying these strict institutional boundaries into the formal fabric of the state, the Prince of Wales is effectively neutralizing Camilla's capacity for political interference, rendering her position entirely ceremonial and legally toothless. Ultimately, The ferocious conflict that erupted across the royal estates has delivered a historic verdict on the true nature of modern sovereign power within the House of Windsor. Camilla's venomous attack on the sunken garden bronze monument has completely failed to alter the historical standing of William's late mother. Instead, it has permanently solidified Diana's status as an untouchable, immortal pillar of the monarchy's contemporary moral legitimacy. The enduring global adoration for the people's princess has been successfully integrated into the executive authority of her eldest son, providing William with an unshakable foundation of public trust that no revisionist campaign can ever corrode. The bronze statue at Kensington Palace remains an unyielding, permanent testament to a legacy of genuine human compassion and sacrifice, standing tall as a magnificent cultural symbol that continues to command the absolute reverence of the entire British Empire. As the Windsor dynasty stands on the precipice of a new era, Prince William has definitively proven that he is the absolute master of the royal game of survival. Through the ruthless execution of his financial audits, the systematic recovery of his family's stolen historical heirlooms, and the total containment of compromised palace factions, the de facto regent has successfully transformed a fractured family business into an unshakable, modern constitutional fortress. The complete capitulation of Queen Camilla and the swift, decisive alignment of King Charles III with the heir apparent demonstrate that the institutional machinery of the British state values long-term stability and brand integrity above all personal sentimentality. The William era is no longer a distant constitutional possibility waiting for a biological transition. It is an active, aggressive, and completely consolidated operational reality that has successfully secured the future of the crown for generations to come.